Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Fallen London. Today we're going to be carrying on with the exceptional story, The Memories of Mozart. Soon after you arrive back in London, you are tracked down by a coterie of special constables, led by a tall man in a lumpy black coat and a forbidding plague mask. He walks towards you with a pronounced limp that somehow seems to speed him up rather than slow him down. Well, look who has finally returned to London. His voice is a sonorous baritone, slightly muffled. We are not placing you under arrest. We just have a few questions. We can either go quietly. The Ministry of Public Decency would make your life very difficult if you refused such a request. And perhaps they can answer some questions of your own. Or we can not come quietly. He says you're not under arrest, but the special constables don't look ready to take no for an answer. This will increase my suspicion if I succeed, and my wounds if I fail. Let's just go quietly. Follow, says the plague-masked man, taking off at a rapid clip. You're forced to half-jog to keep pace. The special constables fall into lockstep behind. Soon enough, you arrive at Hookman House, the forbidding, bureaucratic heart of the Ministry of Public Decency. Its windows are especially small, like air holes poked in a box full of snakes. Through the door, past the desks, and down into the black cells beneath, you are sat at a table. The man sits opposite, the tinted eyes of his plague mask flickering in the dim lamplight. Now then, says the militant monitor, let's chat. Oh, a chat? Nothing bad can happen during a chat, surely. The monitor sits opposite you, steepling his black, gloved fingers. He allows for a pause just long enough to compel you to speech. Then he interrupts you as you open your mouth. This man is an old hand at interrogation game. Days before you fled London, you were spotted at the scene of a robbery, he says. He slides a copy of the unexpurged Gazette across the table. The front page, dramatic heist at the Museum of Medical Macabre. In slight, smaller typeface below, masked robber makes off with the preserved body parts of historical value. Let's scan the newspaper. Needless to say, you have no memory of partaking in such a heist. Let's learn all you can. The Museum of the Medical Macabre, it transpires, is a ghoulish institution on Cart Horse Circus that caters to the morbidly curious or curiously morbid. Its exhibits include a number of anatomical horrors, ostensibly educational, but its prize attraction was its collections of body parts belonging to the famous dead. The word was is imperative, because according to this article you stole the lot. The list of missing items comprises Mozart's skull, Anne Boleyn's heart, Laplace's brain, Cromwell's head, a tobacco pouch made from the skin of William Burke Jenkins' ear, and, to the newspaper's chagrin, Napoleon's preserved unmentionables. Eyewitnesses have placed you at the scene, declares the militant monitor, slamming one gloved hand onto the newspaper. Searching your lodgings, we discovered the heart of Anne Boleyn. The smell of formaldehyde, a heart on a bed of broken glass. And when arresting you today, we discovered this in your possession. He pulls Mozart's skull from a soundproof box, and it fills the cell with screaming. I'll leave this here to keep you entertained, says the monitor, his sneer audible through the mask. With that, he leaves you in the cell to contemplate your fate. All of a sudden, I regret coming willingly. The screaming skull drowns all thought. Even after you muffle it under the mattress, it batters against your ears like an enemy siege. Which is unfortunate because you need to think. You can't exactly prove your innocence from behind bars. How best to effect an escape? So, because I have my set of intricate knifers, I could just retrieve the lockpick you smuggled under your tongue. The monitor's heavies found the ones smuggled in the lining of your shirt, under your armpits, and in other secret pockets, but those were decoy lockpicks. We can make an escape attempt. Modern guards have cottoned on to the old pretend to be ill and then hit him with a bedpan routine. You'll have to try something new. We could charm the guards. Escaping will be made easier if you can get on their good side first. I guess this makes this check easier. We can get sprung by an associate if we knew the devious henchman, which I do not. Or I can be imprisoned. You're transferred to Newgate, having failed to make your escape from Hookman House. Oh god. I'm gonna pick the lock. You're never caught short when it comes to knifers. You wait until nightfall, when the snores of the guard echo gently down the corridor. It's a matter of moments to spring the lock and tiptoe to freedom. Once safely outside Hookman House, you flee to an obliging alleyway and reflect that it's time to visit the Museum of Medical Macabre. Perhaps now you can get to the bottom of what really happened during your amnesia. Well, off we go. Cart Horse Circus is a perilous intersection, perpetually rammed with traffic. You're almost knocked down by a stagecoach on 2 separate occasions trying to reach the museum. A narrow and forbidding building wedged between an apothecary and a music hall. You rattle the door. Locked. One of its windows has been shattered and haphazardly boarded over. The others are shuttered and dark. A crude sign reads, "Major misfortune mandates momentary mothballing." A peculiar way to say the museum is closed, but it gets the point across. Well, might as well break in. At this point, you might as well commit the crime you're wanted for. Prying away the boards from the shattered window, you slip into the dark halls of the museum. Inside, the cavernous darkness necessitates a lantern, which throws jagged shadows and turns everything monstrous. Colossal jars bubble with mummified viscera. Eyeless faces peer from glass tombs. Blade mannequins demonstrate the workings of the innards. At last, a man in black spectacles shuffles towards you, tapping a staccato beat on the floor with a cane. At first, you wonder how he found you, before realizing that the skull of Mozart is still screaming wildly in your pocket. You've learned to block the thing's noise so entirely you'd forgot its presence. Mysterious mewling and mayhem, mutters the monomanical mythicist. A mischief maker, perhaps. This name is going to trip me up. I'm so sorry. This strange man must be the museum's curator. Clearing your throat, you pass yourself off as a concerned well-wisher and ask what happened on the night of the theft. The mythicist shakes his head unhappily. A masked miscreant misappropriated my most magnificent memorabilia. The alliteration slides from his tongue as effortlessly as ordinary speech. Why is he alliterating so many of his words? It's distracting. Merely a mental mechanism, says the mythicist, with the air of one who has explained himself many times before. My mind manifests meaning mainly through methodical making. He stutters like the woman. The mythicist anxiously awaits your next question. Myopic, I miss much. he says apologetically, waving a hand in front of his dark spectacles. Let's ask for further details of the crime. What does he know? How was this incident linked to you specifically? Multitudes marked a menace, mumbles the mythicist mournfully. Mantled in multiple mysterious materials, managing mischief by making off with my memorabilia. Your head swims for a moment as you pass this. If so many witnesses saw your face, no wonder you were implicated. But why were you bundled in strange clothing? The mythicist clears his throat. If you manage to materialize my missing memorabilia, I might muster monetary munificence. So I can agree to recover the mythicist's missing exhibits? The man's only pleasure seems to have been in collecting the organs of historical figures. That and painfully precise alliteration. Or we can refuse. You're under no obligation to help this curious fellow. Clearing your name comes first. Let's agree to recover the stuff. The mythicist claps his hands over his cane and hums in delight. Merci, he says simply. As you leave the shuttered museum, find yourself adrift in the sea of possibilities. The melomaniac is unaccounted for after her sabotage at Z. The monitor's certainty of your guilt and knowledge of your movements strikes you as suspicious. 5 out of 7 anatomical exhibits remain missing, and Mozart's skull is still screaming in your pocket. Perhaps it's time to invest in some red string, notepaper, and a corkboard. Looks like we have a couple of options. We can research the militant monitor. Know thy enemy, as they say. Or we can locate the melancholy melomaniac. Who was that mysterious Mozart-obsessed woman in the veil? Let's start with the militant monitor. Know thy enemy. Who is the man in the plague mask who works for the Ministry of Public Decency? And why is he out to get you? Let's delve into his past. You find him in newspaper articles about raids on gallblighter nests, in the good books of high society, and in the fearful mutterings of back-alley revolutionaries. In certain circles, the monitor's name is well respected. He's an incorruptible man who performs his duty with pride. In others, he's a synonym for zealot. They say that he is a former chaplain who descended to the Neath in an effort to cleanse it of its unnatural elements. They say he has never taken his plague mask off, not once, since he passed through the Cumaean Canal. Its beak is filled with preserved surface blooms that remind him of the land above and keep out the tainted air of the underworld. They say that he intends to return to the surface one day, once his task is complete, and that he fully believes the sunlight will do him no harm. He also has a history of trying to close down the Museum of Medical Macabre, mostly just on the grounds of it being in bad taste. But he's never quite managed to find a legal reason to do so. By all accounts, a deluded man, and a dangerous one. But why is he fixated on you? Even if you did steal from the museum, you can't see how it's a ministry matter. Now let's locate the melancholy melomaniac. Who was the mysterious Mozart-obsessed woman in the veil? Why did she blow a hole in your ship and flee by lifeboat? Is she now in London? She wore a veil at all times and was obsessed with Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart and classical music in general. Surely she couldn't be too hard to find. The melomaniac is a ghost. No one recognizes your descriptions of her. She was only seen in public once, it seems, at an auction that you apparently held in your lodgings during the period of amnesia, where you sold the various exhibits you apparently stole from the Museum of the Medical Macabre. Awfully convenient of her to leave out that small detail about the auction. There, someone in a veil was seen buying Mozart's skull. Afterwards, she vanished. Beforehand, she might as well not have existed. If only you could ask the whiskey-steeped captain and his clay men about their dealings with her. But they have sunk to the depths of the sea, never to return. You could almost believe the whole episode was a dream, if not for the skull screaming incessantly in your pocket. Okay, well, let's start our search for the missing exhibits. 5 of the 7 exhibits from the Museum of the Medical Macabre remain unaccounted for. Apparently, you sold them at auction to interested parties. The melancholy melomaniac bought the skull, and the heart somehow ended up in your lodgings. Where are the rest now? After some inspired snooping, you learn that the auction was attended by one Dr. Gideon Orthos, although he apparently left without buying anything. You decide to pay him a visit at his office in Somerset College. Isn't Dr. Orthos the man who chases you when you're doing archaeological stuff on the Z? I don't like this man. Unfortunately, the man immediately senses an opportunity for profit. You'll have to bribe him with some of your minor treasures. Alright, you can have some of my relics of the 4th city. Very good, says Dr. Orthos, casting an eye over the relics before shoving them ignominiously into a desk drawer. What was it you wanted? Ask me again, Something about an auction? You press him for details. Was it really you who was running this affair? Who bought an item? I lost interest after asserting that the items on sale were most likely fake, and besides, they were being sold at far from a reasonable price, says the doctor airily. I took note of who bought what, of course. Perhaps he was just hoping to rob them later. Dr. Orthos explains that Napoleon's unmentionables were bought by his amused lordship, while Cromwell's head was purchased by the captivating princess. The tobacco pouch made from Burke's skin ended up being sold to the coquettish Relica. Mozart's skull, of course, was bought by a veiled woman whom Orthos did not recognize. Jenkins' ear was apparently never for sale, nor was Laplace's brain. Those can be mysteries for another day. For now, you have 3 leads to pursue. Well, let's start at the top. This was quite a list of very influential people being at our auction in our house. It's quite impressive. Let's seek Burke Skin's tobacco pouch. You find the Cottish Relica skipping down a quiet street, pushing a cart full of odds and ends. Mainly odds. When you ask her about the tobacco pouch made from William Burke's skin, she spreads her hands innocently. Oh, got rid of it already. Ghastly thing. Oh, let's ask about the auction. He looks at you inscrutably. Funny thing to ask, seeing as you was the one what was in charge of the whole affair. After some cajoling, the coquettish Relica relents. As a matter of fact, I did see something passing strange, he says. You were keeping the exhibits in a bag with a silk irigo interior. Believe me, dearie, I know irigo when I sees it. Bags like that, it's a kidnapper's tool. Hearing this, you feel the ground lurch beneath you. A memory rises from the murk of your mind like a salvaged treasure. Remember sitting, tied to a chair, a bag whipped from your head as you blink in the light. You remember someone bustling around you with a steel ruler, measuring your legs, arms, the pinch of calipers around your head. They were humming Mozart's Serenade No. 13, all the while. You right, dearie? The Cottish Relica looks up at you curiously, then shrugs. I suppose I don't care one way or t'other. I'll see you when I sees you. She turns and makes her way down the street, humming tunelessly as scraps of cloth flutter in her wake. Let's secretly follow her. She says she got rid of the pouch, but you're not sure you can take her at her word. You follow her at a discreet distance, keeping to the shadows. The coquettish reliquor leaves her cart by a lamppost and sneakily approaches a nondescript man relaxing on a bench, his nose buried in a volume of Descartes' Meditations on First Philosophy. With impressive deftness, he pickpockets him and replaces his furry rabbit hide coin purse with the buckskin tobacco pouch. Once she's gone, you sneak up, do exactly the same, purloining the tobacco pouch and leaving the man's pocket empty. At a safe remove, you investigate. It's a horrid item, unpleasantly leathery and warm. It seems to be full of tiny white pebbles. You're not sure what strange game the reliquor is playing with the tobacco pouch, but you've probably put a spanner in her works. Whatever she's up to, you suspect it's only tangentially connected to your own recent troubles. Well, we got our tobacco pouch, made from the finest murderer's hide, sourced from the local gallows. We also got a move in the great game. Okay, let's go speak to his amused lordship. You arrive at his amused lordship's estate to find one of his notorious parties in full swing. Drunken aristocrats drape every surface like cats enjoying a sunlit room. The band plays the lurching stop-start music of professional musicians who have gotten unprofessionally tiddled. The trombone player appears to have filled his instrument with wine, producing an unsettling mix of gurgling and parping. His amused lordship greets you with the roaring conviviality of a sozzled bear. Come in, he shouts. When you ask about Napoleon's unmentionables, he waggles his eyebrows. I couldn't resist the scandal of it all, eh? Follow me. A gaggle of young aristocrats follow you upstairs, whispering and giggling to each other. Well, let's view the unmentionables. His amused lordship takes you to a private chamber. He pulls aside a velvet curtain. The crowd gasps. Several faint. Dare you? Ta-da! Says his amused lordship. The genuine undergarments of Napoleon Bonaparte, as worn on his Russian campaign of 1812. A pair of stained cotton long johns hang before you. They're a little less anatomical than you'd have expected from the Museum of the Medical Macabre. Maybe that's a mercy. His amused lordship falls about laughing. The giggling guests flee in shock, dragging their swooned companions with them. You won't get a coherent answer out of the man until he's sobered up, so you wait for the other guests to stagger home. By the time the party ends, it's just you and his amused lordship, somehow still upright. He retrieves a bottle of brandy from a hidden compartment in a globe. Well, let's ask him about the auction. His font of anecdotes is inexhaustible, but you manage to ask him while he's wheezing over one of his own punchlines. Dreadful affair, says his lordship. All those grisly things in jars. But I just had to get my hands on those pantaloons. What a hoot. When you ask him if he noticed anything strange, a thoughtful look crosses his face. Yes, the way you spoke was damned odd, he says. You never referred to Mozart by name. Instead, you kept calling him Wolfgang Amadeus, like you were on first-name terms. As you hear this, some piece of lost memory clicks gently back into place. You remember the auction, but you do remember returning to your lodgings from an investigation, only to find someone had broken in. The heart, the glass, formaldehyde. Then someone pulled a bag over your head from behind. For a moment, just a moment before the darkness, you saw your assailant in the hallway mirror. It was your own face. As you jolt back to reality, you find his lordship suppressing a yawn. Tell you what, could you do me a favour and take those undergarments off my hands? They were an excellent centrepiece for this party, but it would be passé to exhibit them a second time. You leave his estate with your dubious prize held reluctantly at arm's length. Okay, there's still a whiff of sweat, horseflesh, and cordite. Lovely. Finding Cromwell's head, huh? You find the captivating princess on the lawns outside the shuttered palace, wielding a croquet mallet with surgical precision. The ball, of course, is the head of Oliver Cromwell, looking rather battered. He doesn't seem surprised to see you. "Come to check up on your merchandise?" she asks, giving Cromwell a whack that sends him tumbling across the grass. "It'll teach him to execute my great-great-great-great-great-grandpapa." He rests a foot on the head, rolling it to and fro. "Next time thinking of boiling him down to a skull and turning him into a drinking cup. You know, as the pagans did. I just need to work out how to stop my wine dribbling from his eye holes." I can help her solve the eye holes conundrum. Stopping the eyes with circles of wax should suffice. Ah, God, no, let's see if we can persuade her to not defile Cromwell's remains. It's barbaric, and more importantly, unhygienic. She doesn't seem to mind barbarism, but your points on hygiene hit home. With a sigh, she tosses you the freshly dented head. "Keep the filthy thing, then. I'm bored of it." The princess turns to you with a blistering smile. "So, what did you want?" Can we ask about the auction? What happened that evening? You need her to recall everything she can. "It was rather boring," declares the princess. "I only remember one thing that made me laugh. While you were wrapping up the auction, your hand fell off and crawled away like a spider. Thought it was very clever. You'll have to show me how you did that." The princess's laugh is like the shattering of glass. Some piece of darkness dislodges in your mind, and a memory scuttles forth. Stabbing down, the crunch of chitin, the flailing of limbs as something dreadful died. Spiders. This all started with spiders. An infestation at the Museum of the Medical Macabre, and you were roped into dealing with it. You recall staking out the museum, preparing to investigate, fending off an arachnid ambush, teaching them why ambushing you is typically a poor idea. Then, the breaking of glass, just like the princess's laugh. You resurface from the memory, gasping as though saved from a second shipwreck. Let's have a look for the missing brains and ears. You've now accounted for all the missing exhibits, with the two exceptions: Laplace's brain and Jenkins's ear. Perhaps one of those holds the key to this mystery. Has anyone seen a disembodied ear or brain lying around? The question earns fewer odd looks than one might expect. This is London, after all. Doesn't take long. The urchins are up in arms, and it's the talk of London's lower classes. Apparently, a severed ear was discovered in the gutters of Spite recently. To be precise, it was found at the exact halfway point between the territories of the Noughts and the Crosses. Two urchin gangs who are bitter enemies. Needless to say, the discovery precipitated an outright war, far worse than the gang's usual tussles. After all, it's a severed human ear. The urchins had to have it. You hurry to Spite to see for yourself. Sure enough, Spite is in chaos. You walk past smashed windows, egg-spattered bystanders. Propagandic graffiti declaring the ear is ours. Urchins lob stink bombs, and some actual bombs, at each other across the rooftops. Small children wearing newspaper armour skirmish in the gutters, while the more seasoned street warriors conduct elaborate flanking manoeuvres using washing lines as zip ropes. More and more urchin gangs are being drawn into the conflict. As you watch, a heroic member of the Fisher Kings, leaning out from a nearby gabble, uses a hook to snag the ear from the hands of a triumphant member of the Crosses moments after she wrests it from an enemy soldier. The Fisher King scuttles away under a barrage of slingshot fire. You notice an urchin standing next to you, casually picking his nose and surveying the carnage. "Woe is hell," he pronounces, gravely. Let's ask him what happened. How did the ear end up here? "Sally the twin saw what happened. I'll take you to her." He leads you to another urchin nearby. Her name, apparently, is Sally the twin, though there's no sibling in sight. She's busy organising the construction of a wall of sandbags across the street. When she sees you, she starts in surprise. "It was you what dropped the ear," she explained. "Or at least something that looked like you. It was running from someone. He took off your face and tucked it in his pocket. I couldn't get a good look at it, but I figured it was a snuffer." "What about the ear?" "I just fell out of the bag," she says. "It was an awful rush, like an accident to me." This time, the memory explodes in your mind like a firework. You remember seeing the museum heist from the outside. You were staking out the museum itself when you saw someone who looked a lot like you, but dressed in a bizarre mishmash of clothing, leap out in a shattering of glass. You gave chase all the way back to your lodgings, and then the heart, the glass, formaldehyde. The revelation staggers you, but only for a moment. Sally the twin runs off barking orders. A wave of urchins from the regiment are on their way, beating tambourines like war drums, dragging a great ancient cannon along with them. The war is about to heat up further. Perhaps you should make yourself scarce. But I need the ear. And you'll stop at nothing to secure it. You vault up to the rooftops, chasing the Fisher King you saw nab the ear for himself. Ducking a hail of slingshot fire, you leap over alleyways and swing down laundry lines. A cannonball whizzes overhead and obliterates a church steeple as you chase him deep into the heart of spite. At last, you have him cornered. With a grimace, he hands over the ear. "Not fair," he says. "Why would a grown-up get involved?" He kicks you in the shin for emphasis before dashing off. You slip the ear in your pocket. Ordinary citizens of Spite are likely grateful. Maybe the war will die down now. We still haven't found the brain, but I do think I'm going to end this episode here. We shall carry on with this bizarre story in the next episode. So thank you all very much for watching. Please like, subscribe, let me know what you think. Your comments are greatly appreciated. Thank you again to the members of the channel and the coffee supporters. It really does help me make these videos and keep on going. But as always, I'll see you next time.